DHCP or Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, we are taking question and answer. Different kind of question we'll take. So what is DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol? Now in a very layman language, assigning IP, Internet Protocol address to a client or to a system is DHCP, the work of DHCP. Alright. So automatically providing the IP is not enough. There are network configuration parameters like the subnet mask, like the default gateway, DNS server. So all the devices which are getting connected or coming into the network or leaving the network. So the DHCP has the work of giving the IP and taking the IP. So these are the various network configuration parameters. All I'm showing is the IP, the default gateway and the subnet mask. But this is very important to understand. It is done automatically. Everything is done automatically. So DHCP servers are there that assign each client, the clients which are in the network or which are coming to the network, with a unique dynamic IP address, which changes when the client lease for that IP address has expired. Please understand that these IP addresses are not given permanently. They are given only on a lease. If it is not there, if DHCP is not there, the network administrator, the people like us and you, has to manually set up every client that joins the network. It will be very cumbersome for bigger network. So DHCP is an IEEE standard built on top of 1985 Network IP Management Protocol, that is the Bootstrap protocol, called as BootTP. So BootTP, actually it required certain manual configuration. Like if the BootTP is giving the IP, the MAC address has to be manual enter directly by the user or manually. But one more problem was there, that the mechanism for reclaiming the IP addresses was not there in BootTP. So 2131 and 2132 of RFC, it defines the DHCP. You will be understanding about this IETF which is implementing it. So DHCP runs at the application layer of the TCP IP network. So this is the TCP IP on the application layer. What information can a DHCP server provide to a host? Now DHCP server not only provides the IP address, because the client, whenever it comes to the network or it leaves the network, this is the work of the DHCP server to assign the IP automatically and to take or reclaim the IP automatically. So the IP address, subnet mask, default gateway and the DNS and the WINS information, there are many information which the DHCP server provide to a client or a host which is joining the network or leaving the network. It has to reclaim back also. How DHCP or Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol work? Now in order to understand this, the basic of DHCP, it works on a process called DORA process. DHCP work on DORA. D is discover, O is offer, R is request, A is acknowledgement. So when the client tries to join the network, it will send a packet or send a request to the server. And that is discovering, because it is not having its own IP, it is not knowing where the server is there. So it will broadcast a packet which is called the discover packet, and that will be broadcasted, and it will go to not only the server but to all other the computing devices which are on the network. So once this server gets this DHCP discover, server will get it and it will respond by offer. It will send the reply as a DHCP offer that okay, you are a new client, I am going to provide this IP, this subnet mask, this gateway to you. So all these lease time, etc., DNS server address, all these information are being offered to the client. This is the second step of O, which is offer here. So discover offer is done. Now the client, when it receives the offer from the server, it becomes very happy. It says, oh, I really need all this. I request you to please provide me this offer to actually give me what you have offered. This is called the request, and again this is going on a broadcast, right? The final thing will be, this request is done, final thing is acknowledgement. Now the server has got a request from client, and now server is ready to send the offer, whatever IP and other information, network configuration it has offered, and then it will respond by saying DHCP ACK, and then it will enter all the content into its database. So this discover, offer, request, acknowledgement, this is the way DHCP work. What is the reason for getting a PPA address? Now what happens here? There is a client. Now it has got an IP address from, say, some DHCP server. Now what happens? Sometimes the DHCP server may not be available. And what client will do after the 50% of the lease time, because the IP address and network configuration only it gets on a lease. So after 50%, it sends for a renewal to the server. It may not get the response because the DHCP server is not there. So now what it will do, it will again send the request after the completion of 83.5% of the lease time. Again it will ask a search for the DHCP server. Now again the DHCP server is not responding, or it is not there. It is not existing. So what it will do? It has worked for 50%. It has asked after 83.5% completion of the lease time. So it will go to the gateway. It will ask to the gateway, please provide me any IP address. Gateway may not be, maybe, it is comfortable in giving, or it is eligible of giving. Maybe, may not be. If it is happening, that is okay. But what will happen if the gateway is also not responding? Then it will go to APIPA. So with APIPA, DHCP client automatically self-configure an IP address and the subnet mask when a DHCP server is not there, not available. So when DHCP client boots up, it first look for the DHCP server in order to get or obtain an IP address and the subnet mask. So a client uses the self-configured IP address until the DHCP server becomes available. So the APIPA service also checks regularly for the presence of the DHCP server also. If it detects DHCP server on the network, APIPA stops and the DHCP server replaces the APIPA networking address with the dynamically assigned addresses. So what is the range of APIPA address? Now the work of APIPA is when the client is not finding the DHCP server, it will provide the IP address for a short time for the IP address to remain intact and the system or the client to remain in the network. Okay, so the range is 169.254.0.0 to 169.254.255.255. So just change this is 255. So this is a class B IP address, and class B subnet mask is what? You know already, 255.255.0.0. This is the range of APIPA address. What is the purpose of a relay agent? Now you might have seen relay race, 100-meter relay race. So now I'll give you one more example, that you are in a room, you are talking to a friend. Assume your friend is not in that room. It is in the different building. How are you going to talk? So we'll talk to somebody else and then to pass on the message. So because they are not in the same building, people cannot talk. So they need some relay agent or some relay work. DHCP does the same here. The purpose of relay agent is exactly same. The DHCP relay agent is any host or a computer that forwards the DHCP packets between the client and server if they are not on the same physical subnet. Okay, so relay agents are used for forwarding the requests and replies between the client and the server when they are not on the same physical subnet. As you see, one is on N1, one is on N2. If this DHCP relay agent is not there, if the network are different, they won't be able to communicate. This is very important. So the broadcast messages are sometimes, they are dropped by various routers. So that is why this relay agent is required in order to fulfill the requirement of the client as well as the server, because the communication has to be there, and that is done by relay agent if the networks or the subnets are different. This DHCP rearrangement can be configured using IP helper address command. What is DHCP decline message? Now you might be wondering that this DHCP decline message will always be coming from the server. No. You see the direction of DHCP decline. It is coming from client to server. Here also you see, this is the server, this is the client, but the DHCP decline is from the client to the server. So it is sent by a client to the server, indicating or pointing the network address is already in use, already being assigned to another device. So this DHCP decline message is sent by DHCP client in order to notify the DHCP server that the IP address you have allocated conflicts with another IP address. So DHCP client then can apply to the DHCP server for another IP address other than the previous being assigned, which has prompted the DHCP decline message. So what is a DHCP NAC message? One is ACK, one is NAC. Acknowledgement means I have received it, I know it. Not acknowledged means I have not received it, I didn't get it. So this DHCP NAC message is also important because we always study about the ACK messages. So if the server is unable to satisfy or complete the DHCP request message because the requested network address has already been allocated to another device, the server should send a DHCP NAC message to the client. Okay, it can also be sent if client's notion of the network address is incorrect. Incorrect means the client might have moved to a new subnet or a network, or the client's lease might have expired. So a DHCP NAC message is sent by the DHCP server to reject the DHCP request message from a DHCP client. Alright. So NAC is always that I am not having it, or I don't want it, or I didn't get it. What is DHCP inform? Inform is I have the IP address. Please give me more configuration, network configuration parameters. Okay. So DHCP inform message, it means that the user has automatically manually configured the IP address, automatically come from DHCP. It is possible that the user might have done it by himself. So not automatically but manually configured the IP address, and the user want or wishes to have the additional information from the DHCP server. Okay. So in this DHCP inform is sent because the IP address is already there with the client. Now in order to be in the network, only IP address will not work. There are multiple information that is to be needed. So DHCP inform message is sent by the DHCP client to obtain other network configuration parameter like the gateway address, like the subnet mask and the DNS server address after the DHCP client has already obtained the IP address. Which port are used by DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol? You must remember it is 67 and 68. So DHCP message from a client to server, are sent to the DHCP server port 67. Please remember, from client to server, DHCP server port 67. DHCP messages from server to a client are sent to the DHCP client port 68. What is DHCP scope? Now DHCP scope is you are having a bag or a container. Now you have a content. You have content here. Say 4 content. It can be balls, it can be biscuits, whatever. Now it cannot give more than 4. So the range of possible IP addresses that the DHCP server can lease out, that is the IP addresses it has, it can lease out to the client on a subnet, is the DHCP scope. So DHCP scope is only talking about the range of IP addresses available or in control of DHCP server to lease out to DHCP enabled clients on a given subnet. In order to make different subnet also, this DHCP scope is used because some of the IPs can be given statically, some may be given dynamically, and dynamically can be divided also. I'll give you an example also. Okay, so its primary function is to decide which IP addresses the server gets to offer to the client. Now you see here there is a start IP address and the end IP address. So this is nothing but the scope of a server. So users can create many scopes because the DHCP may require it. So before building the first pool of available IP addresses, it is very important that the pool needs to be understood, and it is very, very critical to plan the deployment. Devices like these servers and the routers, even the printers, they are very important because they are used by various people. So it must have, or they must be given, static IP configuration or static IP address configuration. Others which client are dynamically coming and going into the network, they can be assigned the not the static but the dynamic addresses. So I'll give an example. This is the simple example design. We have a scope address range from 190 to 168.20, and from 2.2.1 to 0.2.25, these static IP addresses can be given to, say, server, the router and the printer. And then we need to understand that there can be additional devices also that can be, that can come and go. Dynamic IP addresses like these from 226 to 254, this can be assigned, and it can be assigned to different subnets also. What is DHCP super scope? Super scope is nothing but the combination of scope. There are different scope, you combine them, these are super scope. So super scope, that means we have a scope. I'll give you an example first. You have a scope, there are different, first, second, third octet. I'm not talking about that. The last octet is 1. The last octet is 50. So you have a range from 1 to 50. You have another scope from 60 to 100. This is scope 2. So now you have 2 scope. Can you combine this? So the super scope is the collection of individual scope that can be managed as a single administrative unit in network. Super scope is all about having multiple scopes. So super scope is an administrative feature. You see that in the diagram also. So this is an administrative feature of a DHCP server that can be used to group multiple scopes as a single administrative entity. For example, from 1 to 50, you can assign it to from 20 to 30 to you can assign from scope to 70 to 80. So super scope allows a DHCP server to provide leases from more than one scope to the client on a single physical network. Scopes added to super scopes are called member scopes. What is reservation in DHCP? See, if you go in a train or a flight, you get a seat. So that is a reservation. So now here also DHCP reservation feature is used to reserve IP addresses for providing permanent IP address to a client. So you have a printer, you have a server, you have something, or say in the networking device you have. Now you want to give or reserve some IP permanently to them. So the dynamic host configuration protocol reservation feature allows the router to reserve the lease of an IP address for use of a specific device on your network, effectively ensuring that the router does not assign the IP to another one. What does default time lease new IP addresses to client? Now this is a very vague question because normally in Windows 8 days are given as a lease. After that, the IP addresses in the network configuration will be reclaimed. It can be collected back. But this is just for Windows. But the default value is 24 hours. Normally in interview it is being asked. So you can answer it is 24 hours. What is command used to release IP address? So we have release command. You have the renew command. So in order to understand this, IP config you have to write, and then after that \release. So you see an example here, renew. This will come again because there is one more question. But here this command is all about releasing the IP address. So a DHCP release message is sent by the client, DHCP client, to release its IP address. Alright. So this is the release. Please release my IP address. After receiving this DHCP release message, the DHCP server can allocate this IP address to another DHCP client. What is the command used to renew the IP address? So ipconfig, then space, then backslash renew. So the client requests the renewal by sending the DHCP request message to the server, because the IP is given for certain time. That is the lease time it is being provided. In order to renew that time, because the IP, the members or the clients want this IP to be there. So the renewal request contains current IP address and the configuration information of a client. Okay. So now the renewal means the time again will start from 0, and this will again, after completion of 50% and 83.5%, again the process of renewal can be started. So if the server accepts the request, it's okay. How to make client of a DHCP server? Now in your Windows PC, you might have seen this is obtaining the IP automatically. Normally what you do, you will enter the IP address, you will enter the subnet mask, you will enter the default gateway. So in order to work in DHCP, check mark on obtain an IP address automatically. So DHCP will provide you automatically IP address. What are the benefits of using DHCP? Now DHCP is all about automatically assigning the IP address along with the network configuration to the client which is joining the network. Okay. So whichever computer is coming, the IP can be given. Whichever system is leaving or moving out, the IP can be reclaimed. Okay. So if this is the automatic benefit of DHCP. So it creates safe and reliable configuration. There are lesser configuration errors because you are not manually entering it. Unique addresses to all the new devices can be given, so there are no conflict of addresses. DHCP is automatic. It requires least network administration. DHCP has the capability to update itself, and the administrator can add additional DHCP option types like the scopes and the super scopes. So DHCP is all about providing or making your life easier, because you don't have to enter difficult numbers on your PC. Automatically you will get it if you are in a subnet and it is DHCP enabled. What do you mean by DHCP spoofing? Now this word, see, spoofing means what? Spoofing means making fun of someone. Snooping, S-N-O-O-P-I-N-G is a word where there is someone who is trying to enter and trying to get the private information that you have. So DHCP spoofing occurs, or it takes place when an attacker attempts to respond to DHCP request and trying to list itself or spoof as the default gateway or DNS server, hence initiating a man-in-the-middle attack. You see here a fake server, there is an original server. So the client may be talking to a fake server, assuming that it is the original server. And what is happening on the background? DHCP spoofing is taking place. Alright. So this is a kind of man-in-the-middle attack which is trying to get all the information that you have, and you are easily and you are frankly talking to your original server, your DHCP server, but inside the things are taking place are very different from what you have assumed. This fake server, DHCP spoofing is taking place. There is one more thing. DHCP snooping features filters messages and rate limits traffic from untrusted sources. DHCP or Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol provides dash to the server. Now we have talked about the IP address, we have talked about the subnet mask, default gateway, the DNS and the VINs information. So the answer here is IP address, because MAC address URL, no. DHCP is all about providing the network configuration parameters. Okay, so the answer is IP address. We use DHCP to allow the host to acquire their IP address dynamically, which is better than visiting each and every host on the network and configure manually. DHCP is used for. Now this DHCP is used for what? IPv6 also, IPv4 also. See, IPv4 and IPv6, they are just the addressing scheme. One is 32-bit, one is your 128-bit. So you don't worry about the IP addressing scheme. You need to worry about DHCP is used for both or all of these. DHCP server, now if you read all of this, maintains a database of available IP addresses, right? Maintains the information about client configuration parameters, yes, because the DHCP server enters in the database all the parameters which it has assigned to the client. In the DORA process, you might have seen this is the process which the DHCP server generally uses with the client in order to provide the IP address automatically. It grants an IP address when receives a request from a client, again DORA process. So these all three, A, B, C, all the three are correct. Answer is D. There are other things also DHCP provides. You can have a look. This is all about the DHCP question and answer. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.